Okay, folks, I'm here. I'm doing these Friday lives, and sometimes I just don't get to have them live because everybody's life gets in the way and they're very busy. So I have Byron Clarke with me. Just going to give you a wee overview of my relationship with Byron. Several years ago, I had almost like a career-ending injury on my shoulder, and I'd been told that they would have to go through my back, through my chest, to do an operation on my back, and it would put me out for 6 months. I had the good fortune of getting a really good chiropractor who was able to fix it in one session. And we'll talk about that and other things. But my arm and my shoulder, I had no feeling in these three fingers for about a year. And this arm just wasn't working for a year. So you can imagine when it got fixed, there was a lot of rehab to do. So I went to Byron for my rehab, and there's two things he did. He was methodical in the way he trained me. And the second thing he did, he stopped me going to, I was like a bull at a gate. I wanted to get back into training. I wanted to get this muscle built up as quickly as I could. And he said, no, you got to religiously train it back into shape. And if you go too heavy, you go too hard, you're going to damage it. And the only one time I got injured when I've been training with Byron was when he was on holiday and he left me to my own devices. And I stuck a bit of extra weight on. And then when he came back, I went, hands up. I just went over the top. So I'm going to hand you over to Byron. I have a massive amount of respect for Byron, massive amount of faith in what he does, and I think you'll be interested in the road he's went down, because he's not just a personal trainer, he has so much more to offer than that. So Byron, over to you.
Thank you so much, David, for that kind introduction there, sir. And I mean, you basically rolled that out there about what I did with you, sir. And I mean, you brought the passion to the table. You wanted to get better. So that actually allowed me the platform to actually help you better, because that's one of the most important things when you come along to do anything. If you have the desire to actually better yourself or want to make improvements, I'm probably a little bit like a hope man. I'll always hold hope that we can always move forward to a better place than where you are now. I mean, and probably even what you're doing with your own work, David, there, a lot of the people, they come along just because they wanted to make changes to their lives. And I think for both of us, and maybe I can speak for both of us here, we give people that hope that actually you can make positive changes to your life. Look, we're not going to completely change your life, but what we are going to do is we're going to, probably with yourself, is like when you came along to me, it's about your ability just to stop, to sort of take stock and analyze and actually see what you want to do, where you want to go to. And then from there, you can actually make a good conscious decision about heading off in the right direction there. And I think actually over the years, and it's, I'll drop it into your listeners, okay? So maybe a little bit of my story, who I am, what actually I do. So I've been personal training for about 20 years. And over that time, I'll go back into my own story now. While we're just touching on it, my own story. So,
you've unbelievable story, when you hear about it.
Yeah, and it's listen, like, I'll go into my story, but I'm actually fascinated more about your story and the listener's story. I like to hear about other people's stories now, but my own background and story, like as I said, my background in personal training. And I started probably in personal training before it became this huge, massive industry it is today. Probably for me as well, why did I go into the physical route? So I'm passionate about helping other human beings to better themselves. And again, from me, I've probably quite a sporting background. When I was younger, I'm a martial artist like yourself. Yeah, okay. So when I was younger, I was a martial artist as well. So I think you and I we clicked on anyway, because we have a certain mindset and we clicked anyway. And so for me, I progressed then. I wanted to help people. So I went into the personal training route, and I think even I put a little bit of a bio up on your breathwork page there with ahead of this. So for me, it was a case of I wanted to learn as much as I could to help the people in front. And it's all like a learning curve. So you obviously start at the bottom and you start to work up and base up your knowledge. And I think for me going along in the early days, I think when you started into my world, I think a big chunk of it, I moved into more sort of sports performance, actually rehabilitation. And my many moons ago as well, I probably wanted to be a physiotherapist as well. So I was fascinated by physiology at that time of my life. And so I moved in, I was like sports performance, And I mean, I just hustled about, Jeff. I think in my bio, I went round. I mean, I was going to universities. I was shadowing people. I was seeking out the world's best to shadow them, to learn from them. And so I did that for a number of years. And actually, I think as I grew and I got older, I probably started to identify really with human beings, where they were at in their lives. Because in my youth, I was a hammer and everyone around me was a nail. And I was going to hammer. Yes, so I was going to hammer everybody into shape, you know, and I was quite full on, and, you know, but also having like an understanding and a knowledge about how to put together exercises and programs and how to do that for a response. But as I go through the years, and I was listening to Sam, and I'm sorry I'm reverting back into his Sam's story. Because Sam was, when I actually watched that one, I was very honest. He was very honest. And there seemed to be a turning point and a moment in his life. And I'm going to pull this out of my memory. He was talking about trying to put a suit on. And that was the turning point when he went in there. And I think he probably had this internal sort of volcano going off, you know, that just, I have to change. Probably one of the big standout moments for me in my life, probably one of the big moments, was when I was sitting in a chair and somebody, when we did a brain scan, and they walked back in to the room and says, look, we found what we think's a tumor close to your brain. So that's one of those sit down moments where you're sitting and your life goes, woo, things start to revolve. You think, did somebody just tell me that? So, and I'll let the listeners into that story, because I started for a few years after I had to go into sort of treatments and things. I was a complete medical mystery. And so probably that was like the birth of me actually starting to think, how do I actually, you know, at that point in time in my life, if you looked at me, I was such a physical specimen. So anyone looking at me at that time, looking at you, went, oh, you're great, like blah, blah, blah. But actually, if you'd got a microscope at that point, a very powerful microscope, and you look deep down inside my body at a cellular level, I wasn't doing that well. So on the outside, everything looked great. Down at a cellular level, there was something going wrong, very evidently wrong, and it betrayed into which looked like a tumor close to my brain. So I had to go through a lot of treatment for many, many, many years. And why do I say that's a turning point? Because I never, ever, up until this day, I've never able to get back to that physicality where I was at that point. So I, as a person at that point, changed in my life. And whether I said that was for the positive or negative, at the time it was negative, because it was just, I'm got this going, and it's like a stop. And it's I was nearly like a mini COVID to me at that point, where actually you're going about your life and it's just, you're doing nothing. For me, that one point in that day, from sitting in a chair to being a thriving, successful PT at the time, having my own sort of personal training business, just to be told, look, you have to put that all away. You have to go on this path now about to survive.
And you, so did you have your daughter at that point? Your first daughter?
No, I'm going to lead on to that. No, I'll lead on to that there. No, that was actually, no, that's when I was about, so long ago, it was about 25, 26.
Wow, that was young.
When I got that news. And it's interesting.
But even when you were training me, which was only, you know, we're talking 5, maybe 8 years, I can remember.
Yeah.
But, you know, you would send me a message saying, oh, I'm not able to come in today. I have to go for a meeting. And then you come in the next day and you say, oh, I had to go to Harley Street. I had to get this thing done with my brain. And you go, what? You know, it was like, you know, you had to pick the kids up from school. But what it was, you were going to Harley Street to see one of the top brain surgeons in England.
It was a top eye man. Over there.
You know, and it wasn't as if that was a one-off. That was you were regularly flying to England to get, and that was years after the event. You know?
Yeah. It's funny again to see even that I'm still on the books.
Yeah.
I'm still on the books because I've still. Well, listen, we're being very honest in these talks here. I still have a golf ball behind my eye. You know, so there's still a lump in there, but like, you know, and this is what leads on to it. So I'm thinking for your listeners, we all have things that we have to carry on in our lives every day, sure. And that's and And actually, it's very interesting, and I'm leading on to I'm just going to keep my story going on, that, that came about, and it was a bit of a strange period, So anyone listening here, I can understand what you call the dark periods, and that you put out there as well, the darkness.
Absolutely.
And the darkness. And if anyone's old enough to remember a cartoon or a sort of little film, it was called The Never Ending Story, and I was brought up, there was actually a thing in it. So if anyone's looked, the actual big thing they talked about that was coming after him, the badness, was called the darkness.
Yes.
And it always stuck out in my mind as a child, because this thing was chasing him, was the darkness.
Yes.
And I can understand to anyone listening now what the darkness is. The darkness is in that time, you're in a period whereby I think there's a lot of overwhelm. There's loads of things against there. It's all different. You can't really see a way out of it at times.
Yeah.
And it probably took all of my optimism at that time. And not only mine, I'm not going to put this down just to me. I'm on, a loving, supporting family around me. And always wanted to, with their help, always be there. And that was actually one of the most powerful allies that I had, that anyone could have. And so moving on from that, so again, I had years of treatment, and then I had to get back to a way I live and do it. I had to get back to this here. The hardest pill for me to swallow at that time was being super extreme fit, super extreme, to the point where I had to, it was a real change. It was a real change. It was being able to do this, to basically not to be hardly doing this. And I will take it to the struggle of getting out of bed in the morning. So I can understand, with anyone's listening, when you're broken and you're finding it hard to get up, and you have to really dig deep to pull yourself back and get on with it. So just anyone listening, I can understand those periods.
I think, you're what you've had to go through, and listen, Mark, I can see that you're not telling the full story, because that was, at 25, to have a golf ball behind your eye, and were you married at that point?
No, it's no, sir. And I think at that time,
you sort of went. You had your family, you had your mother and your sister, whatever. But at 25, I think that's it's an age where you thrive. Most people get iller as they get older, and they expect to get old or to get sick when they're in their 70s and 80s. But when you're 25, that must have just hit you like a brick. Just hit you
like a brick. It did, David. Hit me like a brick. But the other thing was, it was just the mentality pull I had in my time in my life. It was like, just let's face it. Okay, let's deal with it.
Yeah.
Let's just go with it. Let's go. I put my faith in the people, honestly, the good people that were giving me treatment. I put my faith, turned up to them. And I knew they had my best interest at heart. And because I was young, I'm not saying that, they really probably thought, right, okay, I'm at the start of my life here, And it was a little bit like a conundrum. You wouldn't really know. It was really a trial and error. We'll try this, we'll try that, we'll try this, we'll try that. And each attempt wasn't really getting anywhere. So I think that for me at that time, it was actually, and I'll look at this in two ways. Back then it was a negative. I'm looking at it as a positive now. It forced me to learn. And actually got me to think outside myself, because which is a very easy place to sink into, especially in the world we live in. It's all about me, myself, and I. And actually at that point, it started to get me to move off on this path about you and we rather than I and me, if that makes sense. So sometimes I thought it's about starting to look out and appreciate things a little bit more. It wasn't always just about muscles and fitness and eating loads of meals and doing whatever. Probably back at that time, I thought I understood health. I didn't really have the understanding. And probably what I found out at that time was, I was saying, just let people listen, I was more of in a performance route, getting better and all that. But I soon found out that performance and health don't really lie in the same line.
Yeah, you can be fit, but you may not be healthy.
Well, health and performance, look, they don't really lie on the same page, okay? Because performance is all about performing at all costs, getting better. Whereas health's more about, it's more about managing things, making sure you don't get too overcooked and stuff. So actually
Yeah, if you look at the American footballers are the typical example. These guys are elite athletes, and they're dying in their 50s because the
Yes,
bodies are burnt out. They're just burnt out.
they burn
So
out
you
their
can only do
mitochondria.
so much. And I think sort of you went down the mitochondria side and the
Yeah.
understanding of fascinating, because when I used to train, it was like an education as well. Because you were doing your training, but
Yeah,
you hear about the latest research you were doing. And
yeah,
you were
yeah.
reading all the papers because it was for yourself, but also there was a fascination in helping other people. And,
Yeah.
unbelievable amount of information that I have gained from you over the years.
And David, look, I mean, the information's out there. It's all there, and I suppose you're looking for it. And for me, I'm just sort of just leading on to my stories a wee bit more. I've got up my head here, David, because it's always leading on to big information and gathering. So I think I was fortunate then, not long after I've been getting treatment and stuff, that my first daughter appeared. And my first daughter, and some people may know, some people know, she's very, we'd say, she would be severely disabled.
Yeah.
So she has a array of disabilities ranging from autism, severe learning difficulties, epilepsy, and she's non-verbal as well, which brings with it this challenge. So about 10, 12 years ago, I actually had to figure out some ways how to help my daughter because she's very specialized. So I was fortunate to actually dive into the world of behavior science.
Yeah.
And so I actually had to go there and learn, and thankfully be under some really, 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 really good people. And still to this day, they're part of our team, if you would call it. And so I had to go and learn a new part of it, which is behavior science, which is fascinating. It's fascinating because it's going to be one of the most powerful tools going forward. It was one of my most powerful tools that actually, when I started to learn it and then I actually think, I've been doing a lot of this stuff with people, not actually having a formula to actually work along. I was just using parts of it. Oh, that goes there and there. So from people come to, why am I explaining this, David? People generally come along me to change.
Yeah.
They want to make changes, positive changes, whatever, to their life. And for me, a very fundamental, basic level, I needed to teach my own daughter life skills. And I'm going to probe in the liver, and this might not seem a lot to people, but if you're going to try and get somebody who can't independently touch their finger and thumb, or even do that, or even if they try to do that, they're doing this here. But to get them from there to be able to do this and hold a pen and actually independently color stuff, there's a lot of steps along the way.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Yeah, okay. But actually that fascinates me. That fascinates me. How do you go from there to there? And I'm going to give an example. If somebody comes in and maybe they've got these like array of sort of eating habits, they've got this in place and that in place, or they're doing this, but they want to get to this better place. Well, what's the right steps? What's the right approach? So when I learned behavior science, that actually helped me to figure out why we do things as humans. What's the process, and are there things that are put in place to actually allow you to go from A to D? Do you go through ABC, or do you just try and go A to D? So really what it done for me at that time was actually allowed me to get another skill, actually, as well, to learn more about human beings and how did that all pair together with my story. So it led me to a path, David, probably over the last 10 years. More so, and I'm going to say more so, and not exclusively, because I still have, I still have interest in sport and doing that. But fundamentally for me, it was bringing me down to this route to figure out how human beings really worked. Mm-hmm. And if I go back into, again, reverting back to an old 80s show, there was an 80s show called Inner Space. I don't know if you can remember it. And Inner Space, what they did, they actually shrunk the people down into a tiny little spaceship, or a little sort of capsule. Right. Injected them into the body, and they whizzed around the human body. Yeah. They were inside people at the time. And why did I bring that up? Because that's sometimes how I look at, I'm fascinated by the inside of the working of the human body. And then actually what I did find was actually when you go inside, the human body is extremely, extremely complicated inside. It's extremely complicated. And so for me, then, it took me on a journey over the sort of like 10, 12 years there, starting to look at the things that impact human body. So what do we respond to? What do we do? So, and for me, it was interesting because you're on the breath work, David.
Yeah.
Okay, you teach breath work. You're brilliant at what you do in that there. So my brain always goes, well, you are, because I mean, like you and I were, and can we say this? We're doing breath work sort of many years ago. Okay, yeah. We were doing it, but actually, like everything, what you'll find is like, to me, what separates the professional and the amateur, the professional has a framework, yeah, and a plan to, yeah, take you from A to D or whatever. The amateur sometimes just does bits and pieces here and there. I'm not saying they're not good or anything. I'm just basically saying they do little bits here and there. Whereas I think if you're doing it more, you do it in a formula. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. So for me, getting back to David, then actually I started to figure out more and more things, sir. I started to think. So I had people then approaching me, and over the years, when you train people for long periods of time, you get to see an awful lot about their life. Maybe they develop, maybe they're getting in and out. I look at life in cycles anyway. So I look at life as cylindrical, and we go round, and there's different cycles and different things. But for people over the years, I started to notice when people come along, and we're at that time, maybe people got sick, maybe, along the way, maybe developed, things like cancers or people around with cancers. And over the years, I just started to people come, and I started to get really fascinated, at a cellular level in the body. I really get fascinated about why are things happening, or is there certain things that happen in certain places? And I started to notice a lot of trends just when you work with lots of people. And I've worked with lots and lots and lots of people over the years. I'm going to put a figure on it, say 1,000 to 2,000. That's just a rough figure I'm giving there. And when you work with a lot of people, you start to see lots of different things. And so, me, I just get very, very fascinated by things. And so I started to look at, are there big rocks that affect the body? And then actually one of the things that I noticed is, okay, you've got inside the body, but there's things outside the body that are making the inside body do the things too as well. Okay, so I know you'd be a big fan, maybe of Bruce Lipton and that as well. So, yeah, absolutely. Biology of Belief. Probably if any listeners listening one day, a fascinating book. Robert Sapolsky, Why Sleepers Don't Get Ulcers. Okay. And that was a fascinating book when I read it at the time, because first and foremost, Robert Sapolsky, and I'm sorry if I'm boring anybody here, but what he would have done at the time, he would have his thing would be looking at hormones. Okay, looking at hormones in the body, and he's one of the world's leading minds on endocrinology, which is hormones and stuff. So what he studied was animals initially just look at behaviors and look at why did they do this and structures. And one of the things they said at the time was that it was about the environment around there was making the genes inside the body express and do different things, and you were noticing different things. So that just added another dimension. That was not only what's happening in your own body, it's what time of year is it, who are you around, what are you exposed to. We're having these different impacts within the human body too. So not only for me getting fascinated about this, there was one plate spinning, which was your body. Mm-hmm. There's another plate outside it spinning, was probably the environment and the climate and stuff. And then there's probably you're spinning on Earth. There's loads of things, variables all moving about. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's why I'm passionate about what I do, because there's so much evolving information all the time. And I'm very passionate about science, because science is just always developing and moving on, and new things are appearing. And actually maybe things that appeared back in the past, we didn't really have a great understanding of, and they've resurfaced with a better understanding, and we can fit it into places. So for me, David, it's really about the fascination of humans. And that's why when you'd said to me at the start about, and physical personal training, I always look now as myself looking at more of specializing in looking at all the factors, all the factors that keep you well, and actually maybe more just from the outside looking at what's the key components, what's, after sort of having a chat, figuring out where you're at, lifestyles, stuff, all that. And then finding out what is the absolute, where are you on this? I have like a continuum, okay? I think a cycle. Whereabouts are you on that? What do you need to do that? Is there certain things you need to do there, do there? And that probably has taken me about 10 to 12, 15 years to basically keep honing that sort of ability to do that.
Yeah, we haven't spoken a lot because life's been crazy with the lockdown and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I know that you have, and this is something that I'm really interested in. You have developed a program.
Yeah.
I think it's the burnout antidote.
Yeah.
And
Burnout
you
antidote.
work with people. I'm not saying you obviously work with a wide variety of people. And sometimes when people are on here, they don't want to blow their own trumpet. They want to say, "Oh, I'm brilliant at this" or whatever. But I think one of your major successes that I have seen, because I have seen people struggling, because you have the gym above the dojo. I've seen people struggling to get up the stairs, and I mean really struggling. And I'm not talking about at a physical level, but at an emotional level. You can actually, I've seen people sitting outside in a car, not wanting to come in the door. And I've seen the same people 6 weeks later that are straight up the stairs, land down on the mat, doing a bit of breath work, getting into their stuff. And, at the end, or even at the start, you'll say to them, "Oh, listen, your right hip's a wee bit tight." You said it to me and I went, "No, it's not." And then you've worked on my leg and I feel it opening up and go, "All right, it must have been." So you see things that people don't see. And you have this you've a wealth of knowledge, and you've packaged it in this burnout. What's it?
It's called the burnout antidote. Yeah.
This is why I wanted to get you on, and I know I want you to talk, but I want to sort of have a platform a wee bit myself. We've had this conversation. COVID-19, horrendous. The amount of people who have died from it, really, what can we say? They were taken too soon. Even if they were in their 70s or 80s, they were still taken too soon, because we could have lived another 2 or 3 years or 10 years.
Yeah.
But you and I are in agreement on this. September, October, November, when the nights start drawing in, when people haven't had their summer holidays, which buoy them up, it's almost like the summer months puts money in the bank and everybody's on empty. And when we get to September, October, that's when people are going to start to struggle mentally, physically, and emotionally in all aspects of their life. And that's going to be the legacy of COVID. There's 450 people in the UK die every day from cancer.
Yeah.
And a massive amount of those cancers can be avoided with good lifestyle, eating the right thing, thinking the right thing, and physical training. And I know that a lot of people will just focus on one area. I focus on breath because it's what I know and what I've had really good results with. You look at the whole package, including breath work.
Most definitely,
but you look at how they're eating, how they're moving, not how they're lifting weights, how they're moving before they even start to lift weights. And to rebalance their body, but also the sort of the mentality side of things. Could you, I think that's the meat on the bones, and I'd really love to hear about that. I know you're maybe saying, "Oh, I don't want to push this." It's not about pushing it. It's just about letting people know what you have. And people want to buy into it. They want to buy into it. And if they don't, they don't. But I think it's fascinating the way you've put this all together.
Yeah. I think for me, David, and it's interesting to see where I'm at now in my life. So this is the interesting thing. I've talked about where I've came from, where I'm at now. I probably excel now, David, working with a very specific type of person.
Yeah.
And the very specific type of person that I really excel with is the busy business person who has got so much going on in their life. And what they're having to do is it's very interesting. You mentioned my program. So yes, the program which developed is the Burnout Antidote, and I've done that in conjunction with a lady. It's Dr. Katrina Walsh. She's actually a former doctor. And what we've done together is, David, you had mentioned the COVID there, okay, and where we're heading to. So it's very interesting. I'll drop this in. This isn't I haven't made this up. So this is off like a financial forum, and they've come out with a piece, and they've done a really, really good piece there. But they summed it up into about 3 points at the end of it. And the 3 points they summed up was number one, we've probably with the COVID, we conducted with about half the world in lockdown. It was at one point. We've conducted the largest psychological experiment ever known to mankind. Yeah. That's the first one we've done. The second one, what they basically hypothesized was this: there is a second wave, but it's a second wave of burnouts and stress
Yeah.
For management and business owners, September, October, November of this year. And there's a reason for that. I'll give you the third point. The third point was you can actually offset some of the negative effects of the COVID if you make some steps now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, okay? But the reason why I'm going to drop that in about the second point about there's a second wave, and I'm only reiterating what I've read from their report, is that there's a second wave coming of burnouts and stresses, and there's a reason for that. Because if anyone's listening here, as say, like if they're a manager, business owner, whatever, there's a big thing coming down the line. It's called absenteeism. Mm-hmm. And actually, and I've just lightly mentioned before there about behavior science and that, but actually that absenteeism is going to come off a thing called avoidance behavior. And people are going to avoid wanting to come to work for a number of reasons. And, you know, maybe they've got underlying health issues, they're scared, maybe they've got parents, whatever's happened, but actually, and the reason for this is that probably for a long period there, which we all rightly had to stay at home, stay out of the way, doing what we're doing, but all of a sudden that lifts and it's go back to normality. So what they reckon is there's going to be a bit of absenteeism down the line here, which, you know, it's a bit of a problem. Okay, so if you're planning running the business and people don't come in, who picks up the slack? You do. If people don't come to work, it's your business. You're the manager. It's there to manage. You have to turn up. And one thing I'll notice, and I said in my program with the Burnout Antidote, is actually I've done a massive amount of research into burnout and all its effects and where it comes from, how to offset it. And one of the big things which I've noticed throughout that, when I was like looking really through it with them, was like, as mentioned, the avoidance behavior, but the brightest stars in the business will burn out. And what I mean by that, the bright stars, so the people who are there to pick up the pieces, who are dependable all the time, they're always there, they're always on the they're the ones that fall the fastest. And the only reason that comes up to really passionate to me is that, again, I've said I've worked with people over the years, a long time, and I've seen a lot of this, especially in the business world. A lot of people cover up and up and up and up and up until it becomes this real big problem underneath, and then it's, you know, and the hard thing about that there, but I think you can put in my bio when anyone says, you know, I'm fascinated about, you know, illness prevention, all these things, you know, where possible. It's very hard when they get, you know, all these things wrapped up and then you go to a place and it's not a good place. It's very hard it's very, very, very hard to reverse engineer. And you can't reverse engineer any serious illness. Like, I'm not medical and I don't claim to be. I train a lot of medical people, but I don't. But what I'm more about trying to be preventative, or even if you have it, maybe what are some of the good things that you can do while you're going through your treatment and stuff like that there. So it's more a case of that. To reiterate back to my point about the burnout thing, it's the brightest stars, the hardest workers burn out the fastest. And you probably got away with it years to date because you had this lovely stability in your life. You got to Easter, you got a holiday, you had your skiing, or you often did whatever your winters, your whatever sun. Maybe it got to summer, you nip off to your holiday home, or you maybe somewhere whatever, and you nip off to these places. That's all stopped for the meantime. That's all stopped. And what you'll find is you push that down and down and down. Possibly you're stuck at home, even on the computer, doing this, which is quite intense, you know, for anyone that's not used to it. Because maybe if you're in meetings and that type of thing, you could just, in the past, in a meeting, you could have drifted off a daydream here and there. There's no daydreaming when you're on the screen a lot. Maybe it is now, I don't know. But I'm finding this is the thing I was finding, people was getting quite intense, and actually more screen time. More screen time. Now, it was a great thing at the start because it kept us connected and we do all these things, but too much of a good thing is never a great thing, and especially when it comes to the screens as well. So yes, for me, leading into David, what I'll be the course from I'm doing, it's going to be, like I said, it's like a group training type course, but obviously a spanner in the works to that was it was all laid out, ready to go pre-COVID, and I think many people listening here that you had loads of plans in place and they're all about to go, and then we get hit with this bombshell. and so for me, it's a slight tweak. It's a slight tweak in the program. And you've mentioned about, you know, breath work and that, and I mean, one of our resources in the program is you, David. So what you kindly did some of your breath work for anxiety, you know, just a very short of like some of the short modules you would do just a little bit to add in there, because I know the power of the breath, especially in those situations when you just need to stop, breathe in, breathe out, stomach breathing. Okay, you do your breath, you chill out, you relax, and it does work. And I'll give you, because we're being honest here, I'm going to give you an example how for me personally, when this is just one example, people say, when this happened. So you said my daughter, it mentions epileptic. She takes, she has took really, when I say bad seizures, any medical people listening here, she goes to status, okay, which the worst seizure you can get. So why did I mention that? So I can recall this event from my brain. The last one was on Halloween night. We get rushed in, sitting down, full team. When things aren't going well, when they're on the phones, phoning people at home to get rushed in. I know the signs. So what did I do at that point? Did I stand and scream and shout at the people trying to help my child? I wasn't going to help anybody. All I could do at that time was control what I can control. And that's it. I'll come back to that too. So what I could control at that time was I couldn't control the situation. The professionals there were dealing with that. What could I do? The only thing at that minute in time I could do was control my own breath. So for me, I would just turn away from the actual situation, take myself away, focus on something that's at least 20 to 30, 40 feet away from me, and do my 5 to 6 breaths in and out, just to switch from, which I think you teach in David, to go from complete fight and flight, just fight or flight, whatever, to come out of that sympathetic state and quickly get into a parasympathetic state, just to try and actually take the blood away from my fingers. Because I was standing, and anyone maybe listening in a real heightened state, your fingers are light, your feet are light, your mouth's dry, all them sort of like, it's the parasympathetic, sort of sympathetic states, just getting you ready to do something. What I needed to be ready to do was to stay calm. Now, irrespective, my daughter's life was drifting away beside me, and what can I do? Hold it together, look away, breathe, do your series of breaths, making sure, keeping the mouth closed, nose breathing, which you teach, David, in and out, and then return to the situation. And I did that repeatedly. How many times? Over and over and over again. Because I'm going from, just to keep myself calm, because at that point, so any of the listeners, if you haven't done any of the sort of the calming stuff, you must try David stuff. Like, you have to do it, because actually you do have to do it, because there are going to be times in your life and I don't want you to do that. You're hopefully not to what some of the things I've experienced, but if you ever do, at least you've got in the locker something that you can turn to that will help you come back into a state. Because if you don't, then you'll just look for stimulants to try and stimulate, and you don't want to overstimulate a stimulated body anyway. You want to get back to calm. So I think that was just another example, Dave, of actually how in my own life, using these little things, and I say, and control what you can control. You can control, and I think for me, that's been a very, actually, control the controllables, and it just keeps going into my head. That's a coin I turned many years ago for a series I used to run. And actually, when I look back on what I know now and what I learned more, I didn't realize actually how powerful it was. So it was just little controllables, and it's really good doing the little things.
Control things that they can't control. They're trying to control the virus. They can't do it. They can't control, will I wear a mask? Won't I wear a mask? Well, there's going to be a law coming out that you're going to have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
You can't control your staff. You can't control anything. The only thing you can really control is yourself. And that's the one thing that people tap out on. That's the one thing people don't bother doing. I think that our body knows exactly what it needs. It knows the right food. It knows everything. But we stand in its way. And I think I know that you had to change your diet because of the growth behind your eye. And, some of the stuff, and I'm not saying you were taking it, but some of the stuff that people are taking, young men are taking to enhance their physique, later in life, they're going to be paying a price.
It's interesting that, and it's just funny you'd mentioned that, because when I rolled up say at the age I was with this here, I can remember the time, and I rolled in, and it was quite, I was up, I was bigger than what I am now, more muscular and all this. And they go and they look at me and go, where did you get those muscles?
Yeah.
And I just straight away put my hand up and says, look, I know what you're looking at. I've never used anabolic steroids in my life. I pride myself on actually being quite natural here, and that I don't.
That takes work. That takes a bit of work. When you get a boy beside you who can get it very quickly with sticking something in their arm, it takes a bit of work to actually put the effort in and do it naturally. Good food, good sleep, and good training.
And the reason why I do it, and I'm just going back, because the listeners, and I'm more nearly fascinated by like what the listeners and how they are, and where they're at, because this is, you'd said to me about myself, about being able to look at you and sort of pick up on some things. And that's interesting, David. That's just actually just taking, and I'll keep putting this back to people, sometimes just stop, right? Stop, slow down, and then speed up. Yeah. Okay. And that's probably one of the things for me now, is just being able to stop and just maybe breathe.
Yeah.
Look, make a call, and then look to build on up off that way and push forward. And I think that's just taking a little bit of time to come to that point, because I think even with your own breath work there, David, I mean, you're always learning loads and loads and loads of courses. I was going to
on Sunday. Just a quick one, because I find it fascinating. Two major things. When you have night terrors, which are worse than having a nightmare. Night terrors are really sort of, you can wreck your whole bedroom while you're still asleep. But your mouth needs to be open. So I tell people they tape their mouth. When they tape their mouth, the night terrors either decrease or go away completely. And the second thing is that menopause, this is the course it was on Sunday. Menopause, the fact is that your breathing changes in menopause can make you 3 times more likely for a female in the menopause to have sleep apnea. 3 times. So, there's so many things out there that people have been told, well, it's just the aging process. It's not necessarily the case. I had poor sleep, poor focus, concentration, was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go to the toilet and then head full of thoughts. And that no longer is the case. I thought I was going to the toilet because I was getting old, and that's what old people did. They had to get up in the middle of the night for a pee. And I don't do it anymore. And I think that what happens is that before people come to you, they're so far down the line that it's a tough job to pull them back from the brink that you're doing. But you give them first thing is a bit of hope.
Yeah.
This isn't where their life has to go.
Yeah.
And then you give them, because if you just give them a package and go, here you go, do this, it's not going to work. But what I found with the training with you in the past is you do a step by step. When you're doing a step by step, it's easy. But when you're trying to make a big leap, you're going to struggle. And that's what I found. It's actually holding people back. You're good at holding people back from going too far.
Well, the thing about it, David, what you said about the step approach. Yeah. That's the step approach. And that's actually behavioral science. Okay, so that's actually a process called backward chaining. So what you'll actually do is actually, say you wanted to run, I don't know, I'm just giving it just because I put it in my head. You want to run a mile, then obviously you have to backward chain that back, and little increments that are safe going up the way. And actually, for me, that was just looking at it from a physical aspect, sir. So what I look now is, so in steps of, when I say physical, so I look at health as total health. Yeah. I look at health as total health. And I think actually, I just glimpsed in one of your own videos one time, I think your Buttigieg breathing. Yeah. So Buttigieg built on 3 pillars. Wouldn't it be the 3 pillar system, isn't it, they have? Yeah. And so you know what I'm about, Dave. I'm all about pillars of health. And 3 pillars are a good start, because actually for me and total health, well, if you look at the World Health Organization, they say it's sort of like, it's like physical, mental, social health, and even a spiritual health in there. Yeah. Well, we could even go to the 4th. Okay, but they're your pillars that actually make up you and how you function. And actually, I'm always looking about what pillar needs the most support, because I'll just give you an idea of this. So when I was much younger, I'd worked in large gyms and blah, blah, blah. And, you'd have seen lots of people who were, really good, Nick, and all this stuff here, but they weren't content. Yeah. They weren't content. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you can focus on one too much. Yes, don't get me wrong. If you want to look great on the outside and all that, you need to be good on the inside. Mm-hmm. Or something happens generally. And I found that out. You had to get really buff and all that, but inside, something wasn't really working that well. It wasn't right that. So I look at the pillars of health, the physical health, the mental health, social health. And it's very interesting when you had those things there, because you think the big one that was pulled out of those, really the last bit, was the social health from the COVID, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Social distancing. Yeah, you can talk through screens and that, but it was the social pillar pulled back. Now it's very interesting, because I don't really think that's been pulled back a lot ever, because that's who we are. We're communal beings. We thrive together.
Yeah.
My big thing, what I think what's common is a big wave of loneliness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And loneliness, and the reason why I would just brought that up, because I studied and researched loneliness so much for the project there, about one of the factors affecting. And it's not necessarily, you can be in a room full of people, but don't feel connected to anybody. And that's the sort of, if anyone's listening and they're from the psych world, that's not the good place to be at, when you're in that room feeling by yourself, even though you can't connect with other people. So even if you're watching my stuff, I'm all about connections, not only connect with like the physical, connect with the social, like with you and I talking now, because when you work on those two pillars, your mental health will be supported. Yeah. And then if you add in other little things, which you were saying there, the breath work, you're adding some food, you're doing this, you do hot and cold sort of therapies as well, David. And, these are all little things that allow you as an individual to do well. And then when you're doing well, then you have a better chance to be a better husband, a better wife, a better brother, a better sister, a better manager. And for me, David, that's one of the things that I'll hopefully take people to that point, because people will come along to me and they want to be, I have no motivation. I have no motivation. So here's an interesting thing. Someone comes and they've got no motivation. I don't feel, and it's generally, I don't feel good enough at this or that. Then how do you get that person motivated? So for me, I always look at maybe getting into like sort of some values, a little bit of a value clarification about what do you stand for, or actually, what do you want to be, what do you want people to see you as? What do you want yourself to be seen as, as in that? So do you want to be like, grateful person? Do you want to be like sort of known as a sort of an inspiring person? Do you want to be like, would you like to be a great, whatever you want to be seen as, right? So, but you have to identify that.
Yeah.
I can't give you that, but this is why sometimes talking and listening is a very important skill. This is why I think for me, one of the hardest things for me, David, was to close this and use these ears and these eyes more.
Yeah.
Because I was born to talk.
Yeah.
And so I think for me now is actually slow that down, and helping people to become motivated is actually, who are you and what do you want to be seen as? Rather than what do you want me to think of you or whatever. It's for you to find out who you are, what you want to do, and what you stand for. Because then once you get those values in place, then you can actually tie that to goals. So if somebody comes along, because people can sometimes go straight, I want to lose weight. Yeah. I want to just do X, Y, and Z. That's okay. And I can start throwing stuff at you. I can give you stuff. But actually, unless you know who you are, what you want to stand for, what others to see there, you don't really know a lot about yourself. So we'll get you to clarify who you are, your values, because then...
It's all about why are you doing it? It's all about
why you do it and why do I think I'm doing it, and that's it's an interesting one.
Like, one woman comes and I'm just making a very simple analogy. One woman comes and she wants to lose weight because she wants to be fit and strong and healthy and wants to be there for her children and her grandchildren. Another one comes and she wants to drop 2 dress sizes for a wedding she's going to.
Okay, cool.
The woman who comes to drop the dress size for a wedding, because her goal has an end time, it means once she's met that goal, she'll put the weight back on again. But the woman who wants to be there for her children and her grandchildren, her end goal is the rest of her life. So the likelihood of her still being fit and strong and healthy in her 50s, 60s, and 70s is greater than the person who just wanted to drop the weight for a wedding.
Yeah.
So you're right in what you're saying. It's about clarifying what your goals are.
Yeah.
also, I firmly believe your goals can't be just about you. I now have 3 grandchildren. I had 2 grandchildren born in lockdown. So for me, I have to be there for them.
Yeah.
I have to be there for my children. I have to be there for my wife. I have to be there for my community, both my breathwork community and my martial arts community.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't do that if I'm not fit, strong, and healthy in my body and my mind.
Yeah.
So, you're 100% right. People need to focus on, if you ask me what my why is, I've just told you what my why is. I'm very clear about my why, but most people can tell, if you ask people who they are, or they'll tell you what they do. Oh, I'm a joiner, I'm a bricklayer, I work in an office. No, who are you? What do you mean by that? They don't, they don't understand the question. And I think you get, when you're with some of the stuff you do, you get to the core. You get to them to understand that it's not about the job they do or the roles they have. It's about who they actually are, and then they get motivated. And that's where that's a really Anne, who's my wife, who never trained. You know this. She never trained. I tortured her for many years to get her to train, and then one day she said, "I'm going upstairs to train with Byron," and I just laughed. And I went upstairs and she was training with you. But you give her a why. You give her a why, and that's when she started training. So that's important. Giving people a why you should do it, and the why is the motivation. The why.
It is, David, because I think you have to. Every one of us all have to look down deep inside, because there's never a time in this ever that it's been easier to be more distracted outside of yourself. I mean, there's everything's screaming for your attention, and grabbing for your attention in all this sort of ways. And I think that goes back down to my point, and I keep stop, slow down, but then speed up. Okay, so at that point, when there's all these things, because we're very much a very reactory type world. I don't know if you found it. I mean, especially after COVID or whatever, people are very reactive, react all the time, and just stop. And when people say stop's not being weak. Stop is actually just your ability just to go, hold on a minute, slow down a minute, analyze, and then look to, once you've got your ducks a wee bit more in a row, then speed up. Otherwise, you can end up, and I'll go back, David, because it says I would, more of the burnout type thing. And really what happens is the big thing of overwhelm comes down. This big overwhelm comes down, right? And and it comes down, and overwhelm, it's their thoughts. Generally what they are is they're all thoughts, and they start to consume, and you can't do anything. You become nearly paralyzed within them. They can't do it. And you're lifting this thought and looking at it, whereas actually, if you stop, just take stock a minute. Okay, everyone's okay. Do this, get that in a row. Okay, what do I have to do? Maybe a few breaths, maybe a glass of water. Do whatever. Just makes you good. Straighten up if you're at the computer all day. Just for that split second, look at the sunshine for a second or two. Just something positive for you, and then get back into your work. So you stop intentionally, add a couple of things in to make you function well, and then go about your day. Because actually, what's going to come at you in the rest of the day, what could happen, we don't know. But I always try and think about people, if you're in a sound position, you can make sound calls, be rational, because a lot of the people, as I said, work with the sort of more business types, but actually now that they can actually make better calls, better decisions, don't have to really do work twice because their time's precious, so when they're doing stuff, and it's just about being more productive and more thriving in their own lives. That's the big thing. It's because once they're more productive, they're thriving, they might find, well, hold on, I've got that stuff done, and there's going to be more time. Actually, I spent time at home with the kids. I want a bit more of that. Yeah. But I actually know I have to do this, but I want more of that. So actually, then it's nearly actually helping to like manage better. But actually, I'm not doing the managing, because when you have your values in the right place, they'll align with your goals. And once your values are lined up with your goals, nothing really will get you off your path. Because any time that you're faced with, and let's face it, nobody's saints on the planet. Nobody is a saint, right? Okay. You might have your goal to get X. What you might find when you're better aligned to your values, you'll have, I call it a slip, and then get back on track again. Rather than having a complete detour for about 6 months and then sort of picking this back up again. But actually the slips for those types of populations I'm talking about are planned slips.
Yeah.
They're put in there. The planned slip is going out for a meal. The planned slip is having cake because it's somebody's birthday.
Yeah.
But they're not having sort of, they're not drinking coffee on tap 24/7, living in a scone just once every two. If you do that for a period,
Yeah.
I generally see you down the line because you're wanting to basically get back from that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is actually, if you can sort of see now, even the people listening, find out your values.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want people to look at you as, and how do you want yourself to be perceived? And those values things are there, but we can pop in your page there. There's loads of values clarifications. Get your goals out, line them up there, whatever your goals might be. Maybe your goal this year is just to survive.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that flippantly. If you're listening here,
100%.
it might be survival. If you're a business owner, it's maybe survival for the business. There's these things are happening these years. So 2020 for me is the year for survival.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what you might want to do is look, and surviving's like, it's not weakness.
Yeah.
Okay. It's actually surviving.
Listen,
and then
yeah. I've made a call. My retirement year has went on a year because I'm not on furlough. I'm not earning money, and I'm sort of pulling a bit of money out of myself, pulling a bit of money out of pension. We say, well, we can either cry about it and we can get down about it and depressed about it, or we can just accept we're going to work an extra year. We're going to work an extra year, and to be honest, I quite enjoy working, so it's no big deal. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
So, and again, it's all how you look at it. It's all, is your glass half empty? Is your glass half full? It depends.
Yeah.
And I think that, with regard to business people, the business becomes, for a lot of people, it's like their baby. And I write books, as you know, martial arts books, and I got a couple hundred of books made before lockdown, and the guy who the printer who printed them, he said, I'm not opening my business again. I've 30 years of work, and I'm not going to open again because it's too hard. And I know other people who have said to me, I've worked all my life and it just went down the drain because of the COVID. So massive amounts of stress, massive amounts of anxiety. How people are going to pay their bills or feed their kids is going to be a big issue coming up forward.
Challenge.
And there's so much uncertainty. And, I'm just going to sort of say this and then give the floor back to you. You were talking about people getting distracted. I have a person that I know, and they said they had it on Facebook, and they said, I went into the kitchen to empty the dishwasher, and I put my phone on the counter to look at a TikTok video, and an hour and a half later, I realized I was still looking at TikTok. An hour and a half. Now, that is massive distraction. And what can you do? What could you have done in that hour and a half? How could you have done some breathing exercise? Could you went for a walk? Could you went for a run? Could you had something healthy? Could you plan your meals for the week ahead? But that's too difficult. It's easier to be distracted. But we live in a world of distracted people. You spend a lot of time in Africa, as I know, and the lions don't get distracted. when they're hunting down an antelope, they don't get distracted. The eyes on the prize, and the prize is health, vitality, fitness and strength, and general well-being of yourself and your family. And that's
can I just, when you've mentioned Africa, Andrew, because that's my little sort of reset. I'm going to call that my reset. Each year we normally went around about Easter time, prior to Easter time. We go for about 3 weeks to Africa, and we actually we go, and we love safari. We love animals. We love that whole thing. And that's my reset. When I say reset, and might be interest the listeners here now. So there's going to be certain times of the year when you want to you need to do a bit of MOT in yourself and repair. So why did I choose to go to Africa? Okay, so I personally believe that, well, not personally believe, but you can even look at the healthiest gut health, okay, on the planet still is retained by more of the indigenous tribes.
Yes.
All right, so you look at the Hadza, they think they did the Hadza, they did look at theirs, and like, it was actually, I'll just drop this in. There was the professor of gastrointestinal in one of the chief hospitals in London. He actually did a piece there, and actually he does loads of tests himself. So he's got a pretty good gut in terms of like sort of from the sort of UK here. He's got a really good gut. So it's just like, we're going to go over for 3 days here, and we're going to live with the sort of the tribes here and go out and do what they do and eat what they eat and stuff there. And they did that, and they were just eating completely what they were eating. It was more natural. They caught an animal, they ate it, this. And they were testing his own, and it's basically his microbiome.
Yeah.
Okay. Quality went through the roof, but it only lasted for 3 days. So what am I saying that? So I just touched, I would go to Africa, and first and foremost, when you go there, you're going back to a place what I believe is, when you're there, it's perfect light. Okay, and it's like perfect 12-12 of light. So the sun comes up about, say, 6 in the morning, it goes down about 6 at night into true dark. So you got this really, really true dark at night. And when you live over here, you never get true dark.
No.
You know about that, so you don't actually get true dark. So for me, when I'm over there, and when we go over, it's just a case to reset away from this. I basically minimize my technology to 1 check a day. So I just checked it once a day, and then that was away from me. I mean, the food, I didn't eat 100 calories of food, okay? But I ate pretty good food. Actually, I do a bit more fasting when I'm there. Yeah. So if any of your people in your group, I would do a bit of fasting, especially in those times when I'm resetting, just to basically not only clear the gut, but it's very, very, very good for other parts of the body too. Also, the other thing about it is you're in nature all the time.
Yeah.
So which is one of the big things I would try and get people to do as well, as a thing actually to overcome nature deficit disorder, which it's a thing that when you don't actually get out into nature a lot, there's actually something that after a while, because we're supposed to be, we're part of the world, so we actually need to be in. And so that's why some people listen here, going to the forest, going to the seaside, why do you feel good after that? It's not just because you go to the seaside. There's things happening there. And you do run into like energies and, yeah. So that's when I go, but actually how I feel when I come back from there is a new person. So any time I come back from it, it's like, whoa, you look really fresh. Yeah. And it's just, I'm telling the listeners that because over 3 weeks, just tuning you don't have to go to Africa. You don't have to do these things. It's just that it takes me away out of the norm into this period to do it. And you home maybe just have maybe that's your holiday. Maybe your holiday. You get away sometimes. Sometimes when we go on holidays, we just splurge.
Yeah.
That's it. We just. But maybe an idea for anyone listening here. Maybe the next time you get a break, maybe use it as a break to give your body a break. Maybe it's a point to give your stomach a break.
Yes.
Maybe it's a point to give your liver a break. And how would you give it a break? And I'm not saying you don't have to be saints when you go away. Yes, you can enjoy this year, but it's not looking to overindulge. And the other big thing which I found so beneficial was getting to bed at a sort of a sound hour, because it's true dark. We were getting to bed maybe about 9, half 9 at night, and waking up with the sunrise.
Yes.
And that's a very powerful thing. Because I know, David, you would rise with the sun, I think. Yeah, because I would see you mornings doing your runs and stuff. You're up with the sunrise.
Winter, I'm well before the sun.
So, and actually, just when we're saying about the winter, I'll just lead on to maybe just when we're on here. So I love to give people things that are usable.
Yeah.
So we're looking outside. I'm sitting here myself. Hopefully, a bit of, even though it's grey, I'm getting light.
Yeah.
And I think even I can see light coming in from one of your sides. You're at the light there, David. So what we will find, folks, we're coming up to our autumnal months here and leading on to our winter months. And so I'm a big fan. You're going to lose our sunshine. Yes. So anyone listening to here, and again, always seek medical advice before this, but please, when you come into the winter, you most likely have to supplement some vitamin D. You would have to do that. I'll just drop that in there. Okay, because traditionally, I would sort of stand up, you're with me, Dave, I said, have you had your vitamin D? Have you had your...
Yeah, for me, it's a must. It's an absolute must. I would spray a wee bit in the side of my cheek.
Yeah.
Inside of my cheek. Because I did a DNA test, and genetically, I found my bloodline back to Sicily. So from a very
Snap.
very, very hot country, and in the winter, when I was younger, I used to get very down and depressed in the winter, and it was the lack of vitamin C. There was a lack of sun. My body craves sun, you know, and so it's always a wee bit of vitamin C. I'll even do 3 minutes on a sunbed just to get away. I know there's different theories. Overdoing it, absolutely not. But 3 minutes gives you that wee hit of. You do get a certain level of vitamin D, not a massive amount, but spray as well. But and then I have saunas, which is again going for the heat and things.
Powerful, So, that's a great one. Anyone's listening to here, I mean, sauna, you know, Dave, as well. Saunas are powerful things.
Oh, unbelievable!
Yeah. Really, 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 really powerful. And but it's interesting because I'm always on here, David. I'm always trying to give back to people, and as I know you are, it's always about that giving back here. And if the listeners are listening in, if there was, say, 1 to 3 things, David, you could say that they could plug in simply to their life that has benefit, what would you say? And I'll try and choose different ones.
For me, the 3 pillars are: get your breathing right. You can last 3 weeks without food. You can last 3 days without water, but only 3 minutes without air. So you need to get the breathing right. You need to get it away from the fight or flight and into the rest and digest. If you've got health issues, then getting into rest and digest is key. So for me, it's going to be breathing. Then it's going to be movement.
Yeah.
Movement's not the same as strength training. So movement, and the next thing would be a toss-up between getting good sleep and getting good nutrition. I think they're both vital. So before it'd be breathing, movement, sleep, and nutrition. And if you had those, if you just focus on those basic things, you'd have a fairly good life.
So reverse back. I'm going to reverse back here. Now you give me the 4 areas there, David, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So even the people listening in here, so we'll be trying to dive down now and actually all of those 4 areas, give them a strategy to. Well, you give them one strategy for their better breathing. Yeah.
Listen, the simplest terms, the very simplest terms is breathe in 1 and 1.5 out. So you want to elongate your breath out. You want to breathe into your belly. The reason you elongate your breath out, it brings you into parasympathetic. And you and I have discussed this. It also creates heart variability. Your heartbeat raises when you breathe in and decreases as you breathe out. The better your heart rate variability is, the better your health. So
for them, just breathe in and out through the nose.
Out on health heart rate variability at the minute, and they're massive. And you need to have that. You know, a flat line means you're dead. You know, if you look at when somebody's, you know, if somebody's on, you know, that machine that they have in the hospital, and it goes boop, boop, boop. If it goes boop, you're dead. So flat line's no good. It has to be that up and down. And it's the same, you know, it's the same with your emotions. You can't be happy all the time. You can't be sad all the time. There has to be that middle ground.
Yeah. So that's it. And then we also touched on other areas for people to be breathing. We did breathing, sleeping. So sleeping. So for sleep, for me, first and foremost, for anyone that has poor sleep, generally what I think of, David, says, once you get out of your bed in the morning, what you do from that moment onwards will affect your sleep that night. 100%. So if you're right, so what people saying, you know, when I go to bed, I do this. If you're a bad sleeper, I think actually when your eyes open in the morning, from that point on, it's going to determine the quality of the sleep which you do that night. So I'd imagine it's going to maybe roll into each other here. So you taught David a breath, you know, in and out through the nose. Yeah. Maybe if you're really like, you know, that, you know, if you want to you would probably do that, David, to incorporate that regularly throughout your day. So you're in a much better state during the day.
What people
for sleep while we're on here, probably.
I was just going to say that what people say is when they lie down to go to sleep, their head's full of thoughts. The thoughts were always there. They just ignored them all day. So if they can wake up and try to diminish the thoughts throughout the day, then they're not going to be there at the end. You know, ties in exactly with what you say. You know, you start. My day doesn't start at 6 o'clock in the morning. It starts about 10 o'clock the night before, where I get my good night's sleep, where I start to wind down a bit, and then I go to bed about 12. We got 6, and I'm good to go. But if I don't do the structures the night before, my sleep's not going to be good.
So one of the big sleep ones, I suppose, if anyone's like, they're not really sleeping, with simple things you can just assess just in your own sleep environment. So one of the things that would probably affect you nodding off and sleeping well would be too much heat in the room that you sleep. So heat, I think actually we looked at, when they looked at some of the stuff, is probably one of the key factors that would actually keep you awake. So you can be warm inside your bed. That's fine. Get inside your bed, but the room should be fairly cool. So just a very quick tip for anyone. If anyone's living in, if your room just, I love my cozy room. Be cozy in your bed, but keep it fairly, not free, just cool out there. It shouldn't be too warm. So that can be a really simple one for someone just to assess. You're like, okay, maybe it's gonna. Some people like to open their windows. I don't know if you do that at night or just have a window open, but it's having the cool room. The next one, we talked about, we said sort of breath and sleep. What was your other colour?
So it was breath, sleep, movement.
Movement. Okay. So were you doing some Qigong drills the other day?
I was doing on my page. I did some. It's qigong. It's sort of shaking drills. And again, going back to the savannah, because everything starts with nature. If a lion's chasing a zebra, and a zebra manages to get away, the zebra will walk somewhere, and then it will shake. And it's not shaking because it's frightened. It's shaking the tension out of its body. Because, this is the crazy part. A zebra and an antelope and all these other animals know how to release tension, and a human being doesn't.
And
you have to have a bottle of wine or sort of fight with somebody to release the tension. When they don't, they just need that shaking really works well.
And that you've got the shaking drill. For anyone else, I'll just drop this in, super basic. I'm not going to probably go and do a simple analytic thing for you is good. Is go for a very, very gentle walk after your dinner. It doesn't have to be far. 5-10 minutes. And why are you going to do that? It's going to improve your gut motility. So it's going to allow you to sort of that to work well in here, because of this stomach in here, where it's like the roots of your tree. It's feeding and it's touching all things. So maybe just after that, it's a good little habit. 5-10 minutes. It doesn't have to be like you're going power walking around everywhere. It's only to move. And I think more in Europe, you would see a lot of this promenading, they would call it. So maybe after dinner, they're going for their nice walk. And I actually wrote a piece in this a long time ago, David. Actually, I come back from being away on one of the Spanish resorts and just sort of watching the locals, how they moved, what they ate. They sat down, they ate paella, they ate this type of thing. Then they all were quite just moved, and they weren't sprinting, they weren't running, they weren't doing push-ups, they weren't doing this. They were walking and talking. They were walking and talking. So just drop that into people. A very short walk, just after your meal, just to get moving, just to get the gut motility moving there, and just getting the digestion working really well. And that's probably the very basic one.
If you look at the blue zones around the world, they don't go to gyms. They just live lifestyles. Eat well, live well, sleep well, and don't overstress about anything. The blue zones.
Oh yeah. And what was the last one we did? Another one.
So we said sleep, which we touched on. Nutrition. Right,
nutrition. Now here's the interesting thing for nutrition for me, David. Right, one of the most sort of common things I had over years: give me a diet. Make me a diet, and then that's okay. Now, when you understand about actually nutrition, gut health, and that, so if everyone at home just lift up their thumb, lift up your thumb, David. Look at your thumb. Right? Can you see your fingerprint on it? Your thumb. If you look at your fingerprint, or that's your thumbprint. That's totally unique to me. Yours is unique to you, right? Okay. So down in your stomach, you have a thing called a microbiome, which are all okay. It's unique to you. No one else on the planet has the same stomach as you. No one has the same stomach as me, right? So leading back down to nutrition here, okay, we all have individual requirements. And what I mean by that, so I could turn around and say, go out and eat da-da-da-da-da, and you could turn around and say, well, actually, I'm a celiac. So gluten, and I have to watch that. I could be, So first things I would probably think for nutrition, everyone listening here, is get back to processed local food. Unprocessed local food. Unprocessed local food. And I can't say enough for it, because I just told you, look at your thumb, it's in, and look at your stomach, that's individual in there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think back to what I'd say is I'd be fascinated about things that can affect outside the body.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're eating food, it's on the outside, and then you're bringing it to the inside, right? So something has to happen down there because it's foreign, and you put it in here. Now, what you want local food for, but local food that's grown locally or made locally has local bacteria on it. Right? This is why local honey was always a good thing. Remember saying, yeah, local honey, because breeze good.
This morning.
There you go. But it's local, okay? And you're getting exposure to these things because actually what it's doing is responding. So you're actually strengthening to the environment around you because you're ingesting. Okay, so get it right back down to it. Eat as best you can. Local food where possible, unprocessed, okay? Making sure that wasn't really too super made if you can do. And try and have regular meal times.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you're listening here now, why do I say regular meal times? So it doesn't matter if you're like a 2-day, you eat twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, whatever, you're trying to keep it regular. There's a reason for that. Because when you have those regular times, okay, the body is actually super clever. It starts to anticipate, right? So when you're about to have that, so we have like a set time each day, and they've tested this with enzymes, we've swabs and all. They know then at your certain time, momentarily before that time each day, your body will start to produce, as you know, David, a lot of your enzymes for digesting food is created in a bolus in the mouth here.
Yeah.
So you basically even know that. So before you even have that meal, you're starting to create those enzymes that are going to allow you to digest your food. So they're just...
What I would add to that, which perfect what you said, is a lot of people will, so sympathetic, parasympathetic.
Yeah.
This is fight or flight, rest and digest is in the bring your breath down.
Yeah.
If you say about busy businessmen, if a businessman's eating his lunch at his desk while working on it, he's not in rest and digest, he's in fight or flight. And then the food that he absorbs isn't getting digested because there's no saliva in the mouth because he's in fight or flight. And then the gut health becomes poor. And then the stressors all come in, kidney health, liver, soft tissue.
Whatever, yeah.
All the soft tissue gets damaged. And the problem that we have is people leave it until they need fixed as opposed to not being broken in the first place.
Yeah.
And I have the greatest respect for people who have went to a place where they're physically broken and brought themselves back with the help of other people. But I have a massive respect. I interviewed C.K. Spartico Bertoletti, 79 years old.
Yeah.
He was in the army. He was in a parachute regiment in Italy when he was 18, and they made him run every morning, and he's ran every morning since. And he doesn't carry any weight, and he doesn't have many health issues. Obviously, he's 79, has a few, but he's lived the program. And I asked him, what would you advise everybody to do? He said, start your day with movement. Start your day with movement. And I'm a firm believer. You'll see me out running at 6.
Yeah.
Listen, rain and everything, but I'm out.
Yes.
I don't run that far. I don't run that fast, but I'm moving.
Yeah. And I think even David, you've hit a key one there because you were saying about your other guest you were speaking to. What is he now? 79. 79. And I want to be him.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, and that's what I can say when I'm sitting here at 43. I want to be him at 79, being able to do that type of the work. And so this is why I think probably the little things that we've probably touched on here, which we both agreed on here, are your breath, your movement, your nutrition, and your sleep. And if we had your 79-year-old guest on here now, he probably would agree with us with the majority of those.
Yeah.
And it's funny because anti-aging would be another big passion of mine.
Yeah.
All right. When I say anti-aging, why do we age? What's the mechanisms? Why do we do these things? And I think a lot of people, a lot of the time, I'm always about, you follow my post, David, about managing things like inflammation in your own body. And I think without going into that too deep, what we have talked about over those 4 areas, just we've mentioned there, will help to sort of offset any unnecessary inflammation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unnecessary. And the reason why I get passionate into inflammation, because I had chronic inflammation. So I don't want anyone to get as chronic as I was. And how you do it is work back, and just them little simple pillars we talked about will get you moving in the right direction.
Yeah,
they'll get you moving in the right direction. And anything you need, as I say, if you need to do things a little bit more, then you have. It goes back down to what's out of balance the most.
Yeah. Yes.
And if something's out of balance the most, well, then it's going to need a bit more attention to try and bring you back to this. Well, I said about physiology, I'm into homeostasis and making sure balance and in a balance. But it's not flatlined.
No.
It's life, David. Life is a wee bit and then down a wee bit here. Maybe there's been a big weekend, up here.
Yeah.
But I try and get you during the week when you've got a chance. Think Monday to Friday is a good opportunity to build some good stability. Friday, Saturday, what more fun times. Yeah. So I think just try and keep your stability during the week. Allow your times at the weekends to have those sort of different variables.
Yeah.
Go out and have your nice meal, have your glasses of wine, have those things, but pull it back again. Yeah. Don't let it go too far and keep bringing in your pillars.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good segue to we'll finish off now.
Yeah.
I think we've been on for nearly an hour. Time just flies when we're talking. So, Byron, really appreciate you being on it. What I'll do is I'm going to put this on my private page. I always put it on there first because they deserve to see it first.
Most
and
definitely.
then I'm going to put it on my YouTube channel.
Okay.
I'll put some links to your sort of your business there. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, they certainly can. I would advise them, especially in the Ballymena area, that it's a fantastic investment in both time and money to work with you. So thanks very much, Byron. And
thanks so much.
See you at some point in the dojo at some point.
Yes, I'm going to go and do my real job now. I'm going to take the kids maybe out in the walk in the rain. So yes.
Okay.
I always enjoy it. Take care.
Thanks very much, Byron. See you soon.
Take care.
Cheers, man.